Hello, good evening. My name is Rajiv Chopra and I'm from the Dusty Mike Chronicles. I've just finished a Substack live session with Raj, and this podcast is coming a week after my Substack live with him. So I hope you check out that live recording. Anyway, let's get to the subject at hand. I've just finished reading a book about Delhi. This book is an anthology of stories about Delhi with the subtitle A City in Stories. In the introduction, the editor Rakshanda Jalil talks about Delhi as being a city of stories. I like the stories. I like the experiment. I like the expression. A city in stories and a city of stories. Both expressions are evocative and they bring cities and places alive. So she talks about Delhi being a city of stories, but every city has stories, and every city is a place of stories. These days, in the very boring world of business managers, consultants, and all sorts of people like that, they are suddenly talking about the power of stories. All of them need a new fad. However, storytelling is integral to humanity, it's integral to mankind, and without stories, our souls will wither away and crumble to dust. I did a project on the 7 cities of Delhi and produced an awful book. Rakshanda Jalil speaks of the 11 cities of Delhi. I knew about the 7 cities, so it seems that there are 4 cities I have no clue about. I shall do my research. When did Delhi's story begin? Some say the earliest settlers arrived in Delhi about 5,000 years ago. The Aravalli's forest, Delhi's ridge, and the Yamuna River created a fertile region with enough protection from hostile tribes, and so they came here and built their homes. There are some who believe that Delhi got its name from a king, Raja Dilu. I have not been able to trace any historical reference to this king, and others say that a sage asked the king not to shake a pillar, else the foundation of the city would become weak, or dhili in the Hindi. The king ignored the sage, and since then waves of invaders have come to Delhi. So maybe the city is a bit dhili. So these waves of invaders have come to Delhi, sacked the city, raped, pillaged, stolen, but they've not one of them has been able to destroy Delhi's soul. The Tomar Rajputs established their kingdom in Delhi in the middle of the 7th century CE, as far as I know, or the 8th century, and called it Lal Kot. When Muhammad Ghori defeated Prithviraj Chauhan, his Mamluk general Qutbuddin Aibak built his capital on the foundations of Lal Kot. Tamerlane, or Timur the Lane, sacked Delhi between 1398 and roughly 1401 or 1402 CE, and the rape of Delhi was so brutal that it took Delhi about a century to recover. And there are people who believe that the unstable conditions in Delhi after Timur's invasion made it ripe pickings for Babur. Babur, as some people may or may not know, was a reasonably close descendant of Timur. He wanted to take Samarkand, but the Uzbeks shut him out of Samarkand, so he turned his eyes to the subcontinent. And so, in 1526 CE, Timur's descendant Babur established the Mughal or Timurid dynasty in North India. During the Delhi Sultanate and Mughal period, Delhi became a center of Persian, Urdu, and Hindi, but it really was a center of Persian. Hindi came much later, actually. And thanks to Richard Eaton, a fantastic American historian, I discovered that Delhi, or India, or the subcontinent, was one of the world's great centers of Persian. Arts, literature, and poetry flourished, but the city did it did have a distinctly Muslim aspect to it. Then one day, Aurangzeb died in 1707 CE, and the Mughal dynasty began its 150-year implosion. During this time, the Marathas, the Rohillas, the Sikhs, Ahmad Shah Abdali, and Nadir Shah sacked and pillaged Delhi. The sack and pillage further weakened the Mughal king, creating a power vacuum, which the British filled with happiness, and Delhi's character began changing. The stories changed. So, if you walk in Delhi's walled city, or Shah Jahanabad, or Old Delhi, or Purana Delhi, as we call it, and if you walk around the streets with your eyes open, you will notice colonial structures interspersed amongst the Mughal structures, interspersed amongst the Hindu structures. And then came the uprising of 1857-58, after which Delhi formally became a part of the British Empire. If Delhi entered the age of history around the time of the Tomar Rajput, it also entered the age of books around or just after the uprising. And why I say books is it's because around this time that the British decided that they must govern India, they must study India and write about India. So they wrote our history for us, and it's only now that we've been discovering our history for ourselves. So books were available, of course, and I borrowed a book from the library on the voices of 1857-58. Local people talking about the effects of the uprising, voices we otherwise never hear. The British evicted the Muslims from the walled city in 1858, allowing them entry only after 3 years. Delhi changed again. Delhi changed again in 1947 after the Holocaust of the partition. And after independence in 1947, Punjabis, my ancestors, flooded into India from the newly created Pakistan. We came to India, and it's a strange expression, as refugees and started again. People have written many stories about this period, and in fact, this book called Basti Durbar, edited by Rakshanda Jalil, stories which start from roughly the turn of the 20th century until maybe about 20 years ago. So there are stories that cover about 100 years of Delhi's history or Delhi's recent history. But one of the best books that I have read about the partition is a book called This Is Not That Truth, or in the Hindi, Jhuta Sach. And in this book, the scene shifts from pre-partition Lahore to post-partition Delhi. After the partition, the Islamic influence declined and Delhi became a middle-class Punjabi city. Delhi's changing again, with lumpen politicians and avaricious businessmen stripping away trees, digging roads, constructing buildings, and ignoring all the past histories. The Supreme Court has now allowed, or seems to allow, mining companies to operate in the surrounding Aravalli Hills, and I am quite sure that Delhi will become a desert. The Yamuna, which I remember in my childhood as being an absolutely beautiful, powerful, proud river, is now just a frothy swamp. So will Delhi become a desert in the next century? Will the forests surrender to greed? And will we allow the Thar Desert to encroach upon the city? So what stories will future generations of Delhi people write? What stories will they tell each other? Will they become like the Fremen of the famous Dune series of books and become desert people? Will they search for spice in the desert of Delhi? I don't know. So what stories will they write? Will they curse the legacy that we leave behind for them? Or will they take back Delhi? And will they push the desert back and rebuild Delhi? And will they rebuild Delhi's soul? What will they do? I don't know. Every city has stories. Delhi is a city of stories that go back, I don't know, it's easy to say 2000 years. Politicians talk about Indraprastha and the Pandavas, but Delhi has stories that stretch back at least one and a half, if not at least 2000 years. What stories do your city have? Every story, every city, your city, my city, we have stories which we forget. So why don't you think about the stories of the place that you live in, and maybe you will rediscover that place's soul. And good night for me to say goodbye. See you next time. And I hope you join the conversation. Leave a comment, spread the word, subscribe to Tramping in India and the Dusty Mike Chronicles, and see you next time. Rajiv Chopra from the Dusty Mike Chronicles, signing off and saying goodbye for now.